Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Greta is only 19 years old, but she's already made $1 million with her climate hysterics. But climate hysterics has actually been the family business since the 19th century. This is Greta with her mother and father proudly displaying their Antifa t-shirts. Antifa is an organization based on beating up anyone with a different opinion. Greta's father's name is Svante. He was named after his ancestor Svante Arrhenius, who started the global warming scam in the 19th century. He wrote a paper in 1896 wildly exaggerating the importance of carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. He also predicted that the world would run out of oil during the 1980s. And he predicted that by the year 2023, the world was going to be running very short on coal. So it isn't clear what Greta is upset about because according to her ancestor, the world is already out of oil and will run out of coal in a few months. When Arrhenius wrote that paper in 1896, the world was actually experiencing a climate crisis. A global heat wave and drought killed as many as 19 million people in India and as many as 30 million people in China. January 1896 was the hottest month on record in Southeast Australia. A heat wave in New York City killed nearly 1,500 people during the summer of 1896. And 1896 was probably the worst year for tornadoes in U.S. history. According to the Tornado Project, there were at least 40 killer tornadoes, including the only one to cause more than 100 deaths in 2 separate cities. St. Louis, Missouri was largely destroyed by a tornado on May 27, 1896. During June of 1896, Arizona had their record heat wave. Parker, Arizona had 7 consecutive days over 120 degrees, and they averaged 123 degrees during that week. The only other year this occurred in Arizona was 1905. In 1901, Nobel Laureate Knut Ångström explained what was wrong with Arrhenius' theory. Greta's ancestor failed to recognize the most important greenhouse gas, water vapor, as being a greenhouse gas at all, and he blamed the entire greenhouse effect on carbon dioxide. Ångström said that Arrhenius' theory was quite inadmissible, and Ångström showed experimentally that a runaway greenhouse effect is physically impossible. But like now, the press didn't want to hear the truth. This article was widely published by the press in 1913. The Coming Exodus to Siberia and Canada. One of the greatest scientists in the world is Arrhenius of Sweden. He's a chemist and physicist and has studied this matter. They predicted that Greenland would have a good climate for farming. The climate of Canada would become like Missouri. Oranges will be grown in Arkansas and Virginia. Fig trees in Chicago. Cotton will be a stable crop in Iowa. Siberia will become the greatest farming country in the world. Antarctica will become like Western Canada. Siberia will have millions of people. Alaska will be as warm as Maine. The press picked up on this scam more than 100 years ago, and they've been running with it on and off ever since. In 1941, the United States Department of Agriculture again debunked Arrhenius' nonsensical theory. In 1941, they wrote in their Yearbook of Agriculture, "Much has been written about varying amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as a possible cause of glacial periods. The theory received a fatal blow when it was realized that carbon dioxide is very selective as to the wavelengths of radiant energy it will absorb, filtering out only such waves as even very minute quantities of water vapor dispose of anyway. No probable increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide could materially affect either the amount of insulation reaching the surface or the amount of terrestrial radiation lost to space." And in 1971, NASA's top climate scientists confirmed this again. For the same reasons, they explained that even an order of magnitude increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was unlikely to produce a runaway greenhouse effect. The radiative transfer models used by climate modelers show the same thing. Water vapor, shown in blue, is far and away the most important greenhouse gas. Increases in carbon dioxide, shown in red, have very little effect, and methane has almost no effect at all. All of the fear-mongering about cows and meat causing climate change is even more ridiculous than the fear-mongering about carbon dioxide. According to the Climate Change Institute at the University of Maine, Earth's temperature today is 0.1 degrees above the 1979 to 2000 average. Yesterday, Earth's temperature was 0.1 degrees below the 1979 to 2000 average. There's no indication that Earth is overheating or that we're having a climate crisis. Greta's ancestor Arrhenius made a fundamental mistake in 1896, failing to recognize water vapor as a greenhouse gas. The Earth is not overheating, which has forced the United Nations, a political organization, to ramp up their fraud. The whole basis of their scare story was debunked by Knut Ångström more than 120 years ago. This article was in the Daily Mail today. Leaked United Nations report reveals the world's temperature hasn't risen for the last 15 years. Politicians have raised concerns about the final draft. Fears that the findings will encourage deniers of man-made climate change. The global warming scam was debunked by Nobel Laureate Knut Ångström in 1901. It was again debunked by the U.S. government in 1941, and once again by NASA in 1971. But it's very useful to politicians, so they don't want to hear what the actual scientists have to say. Global warming wasn't Arrhenius' only crazy theory. He also believed that school children could be made smarter by electrocuting them at their desks in school. He actually tried this in Swedish schools 100 years ago. So it should be no surprise that Greta didn't want to go to school. She preferred to make $1 million staying out of school and pushing her family's multi-century-long climate scam. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on this massive fraud for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki, and Upala on the web at realclimatescience.com.